Hey people, this is Deeb of the RxPost podcast, coming in with RxSNIPS episode 2 on the Continuum of Pharmacist Prescribing. I think you'll find this really interesting as it goes over what is pharmacist prescribing and how has it evolved over time, and it gives you some terminology to look at and to consider when you're talking about and thinking about pharmacist prescribing. Let's go ahead and jump right in.
Hey everyone, ready to dive into something seriously shaking up healthcare? We're talking pharmacist prescribing today.
Oh,
And
yeah.
not just handing over your pills after the doc says okay.
Yeah.
This is about pharmacists, having the power to actually initiate those prescriptions themselves.
It's a big deal.
Huge. Right. You've probably seen the buzz online, states changing their laws, the whole 9 yards.
It's fascinating, honestly, how fast this whole area is changing. I mean,
Yeah.
we've gone from pharmacists mostly dispensing to now you've got this whole range of prescribing power, collaborating with doctors, even prescribing solo in some cases.
Totally. And I'm all about a good classification system. Got to organize the chaos.
Of course, of course.
So to break down all these ways pharmacists can prescribe, we're going to unpack this whole continuum of pharmacist prescriptive authority thing.
Yeah, that's a roadmap right there.
Okay, so continuum. Where'd this whole idea even come from?
Well, the term itself, it popped up back in 2016 to describe all these different ways pharmacists were, getting this prescribing authority. The first framework, it had these two main branches. Collaborative, where they work with a physician, and then autonomous, where there's more like independence.
So two ends of the spectrum, working with the doc versus more on their own.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing this continuum shows how things have shifted over time.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Back in 2016, collaborative was king, right?
Okay.
But as pharmacists took on more, showed what they could do, the push for autonomy, that gained some serious steam.
Yeah.
So by 2023, they updated the continuum.
Oh, there was an update.
Oh, yeah, to reflect that, the whole movement towards pharmacist-led care.
Wow, that's actually really cool.
It's huge.
To see a profession changing as we're living it,
Absolutely.
But before we go too far, let's be clear. When we say prescribing, what are we actually talking about?
Right, good point. It's more than just signing a paper, The American College of Clinical Pharmacy, they've got this whole definition. It's selecting the right medications, starting the therapy, monitoring how the patient's doing, adjusting, even giving the drugs.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a whole process.
So pharmacists owning that whole process from start to finish.
That's the idea, using their expertise for the best patient care.
Okay, I'm with you. So this continuum, it's like the different levels of authority within that process.
Exactly. And here's the exciting part. We're seeing a clear shift moving away from those stricter collaborative models towards independent standard of care prescribing.
That sounds like a win for pharmacists.
No, it's a big win.
But for anyone who's not totally up to speed, break down those collaborative models. How do they actually work?
Okay, so picture this. Pharmacist, physician working together, a real team.
Okay.
That's basically collaborative prescribing. They have this formal agreement, CPA, collaborative practice agreement. It spells out what the pharmacist can prescribe under what conditions. Very structured.
So it's about clearly defined roles on the team.
Exactly. And even within collaborative, there are different types of CPAs, each with its own quirks. You've got patient-specific CPAs tailored for one patient, often for chronic stuff. Like, say you've got a diabetic patient. Needs regular medication tweaks.
Okay.
A patient-specific CPA would let the pharmacist make those changes within the rules they set with the doctor.
So like a personalized plan, but the pharmacist is way more involved in managing the meds.
You got it. Then there are population-specific CPAs. These are broader. Pharmacists can treat more people based on specific things, like think flu season.
Ugh, don't remind me.
Right. A population-specific CPA might let a pharmacist prescribe Tamiflu to anyone with, say, certain symptoms, positive flu test, all that.
That makes sense, especially when you need treatment fast.
Exactly. It can be super helpful.
It makes you wonder why we didn't do this sooner.
Right.
But I'm guessing those are just the first steps, right? There's more to this whole autonomous thing.
Oh, yeah. That's where it gets really interesting. Collaborative models, they're like the stepping stones.
Right. Got to start somewhere.
But to really unleash what pharmacy can do, we got to go beyond agreements.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Autonomous prescribing, that's the key.
Okay, autonomous prescribing.
Yeah.
Sounds like pharmacists finally get to own their expertise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Recognizing them as the medication masters they are. It means they can start change, stop medications, all on their own judgment, within their scope, of course.
Wow, no more needing a doctor's permission for everything. That's huge.
It's about time. And here's the thing, even with an autonomous prescribing, there are levels.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I figured it was just like, boom, you're independent.
Not so fast. You've got things like statewide protocols, they're more specific.
Okay, how so?
They lay out exactly what pharmacists can prescribe for certain things. Think like uncomplicated UTIs, starting someone on meds to quit smoking, that kind of stuff.
So it's like streamlining care for those common issues we see all the time.
Exactly. It's about efficiency, showing what pharmacists can handle.
So those protocols were like the proving ground.
In a way, yeah. They built that trust, and then came a more, shall we say, evolved model. Unrestricted, category-specific prescribing.
Okay, now we're getting fancy with the names. Break it down for me.
Basically, it lets pharmacists prescribe certain meds without needing a CPA or a specific protocol. Think emergency contraception, travel vaccines.
So stuff that doesn't need a whole diagnosis beforehand.
Exactly. Recognizing their knowledge right there, on the spot.
It seems like this is all building up to something even bigger, though, right? Like, is there a, but wait, there's more moment coming?
You're good at this. You see the bigger picture. This is where standard of care prescribing enters the scene.
Okay, standard of care, that has a ring to it. It's like pharmacists are on the same level as other prescribers, finally.
Bingo! That's the whole idea. Standard of care means they prescribe any medication within their scope, guided by best practices, clinical guidelines, just like doctors do.
Wow, that's huge.
It's about trusting their expertise, letting them make those patient-focused decisions.
So no more being stuck just dispensing what someone else decided.
Exactly. It's about recognizing their full potential.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
This much autonomy, there have got to be some challenges that come with that.
Absolutely. Big changes always come with some bumps in the road.
So what are we up against here? What are the hurdles?
One of the big ones that always comes up is fragmented care. The worry is, if pharmacists are off doing their own thing, will they be talking to the other people involved in a patient's care?
Ah, the classic communication breakdown. Everyone in their own silos.
Exactly. But here's the thing, even with more autonomy, collaboration doesn't go away. If anything, it becomes more important.
So pharmacists really have to step up and be those communication champions.
Exactly. Clear notes, keeping everyone in the loop, that's crucial. And then there's the training question.
Right, because pharmacists are medication experts, but they don't go through the same training as doctors to diagnose everything under the sun.
That's where scope of practice is key. Even with standard of care, pharmacists stick to what they know, what they're trained for. They wouldn't, start managing complex heart conditions out of the blue.
Okay, so it's about respecting those boundaries.
Exactly. And keep in mind, a lot of pharmacists get extra training, certifications in specific areas. Diabetes, vaccines are always learning, just like anyone else in healthcare.
That's great to hear. It's like they're not just resting on what they already know.
Oh, absolutely not. This profession is all about staying ahead of the game.
Which is so important, especially with how fast things are changing in healthcare.
Couldn't agree more.
It's inspiring to see pharmacists pushing for these changes, really stepping up.
It's about time.
But let's be real, there's always that one big thing gets overlooked, but it can make or break any progress.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Hit me with it.
Money.
Bingo.
Specifically, how we pay pharmacists for doing all this extra stuff.
It's the elephant in the room, right? We can change all the practices we want, but if it doesn't, actually work financially, good luck.
Exactly. And right now, most pharmacists, they're still mostly getting reimbursed for dispensing, not for the time, the brain power that goes into actually caring for the patient, prescribing included.
It's like we're stuck in this loop where pills are worth more than knowledge,
It needs a serious shakeup if we want pharmacist prescribing to really take off. We got to figure out sustainable payment, whether it's insurance, government, or even those new models like value-based care, where you get rewarded for good outcomes.
So paying for the impact pharmacists have, not just how many bottles they hand out.
Exactly. And it's not just about fairness. It's about making sure they can actually do this, dedicate the time, the resources without going broke. If we want them in these roles, it's got to be doable financially.
It makes you wonder how much potential is just like sitting there untapped because of these old payment systems.
And then on top of payment, there's the whole regulatory maze. Each state, its own rules about pharmacy, it's enough to make your head spin.
So it's not just minds we got to change, but the actual laws, too.
Exactly. We need things to make sense across the board. Maybe some federal guidelines on pharmacist prescribing just to cut through the confusion, help everyone get on the same page.
Create a system that supports them, not holds them back.
Exactly. And that's the message we need to shout from the rooftops. Pharmacists have been underutilized for too long. But things are shifting, and it's on all of us to make sure they get the recognition they deserve.
So to all the pharmacists listening, but the future's waiting. Go make your mark. This is The Deep Dive. Signing off. Keep those brains engaged.